Part 2 of Chapter 1 of Homer Price. Aroma opened one eye and didn't look interested, even when the radio worked perfectly and an announcer's voice said, N.W. Blott of Centerburg won the grand prize of $2,000 for writing the best slogan about Dregs aftershaving lotion. "Why, I know him. He's from my town," said Homer. Aroma still looked uninterested while the announcer said that next week they would broadcast the Dregs program from Centerburg, and that Mr. Dregs himself would give Mr. N.W. Blott the $2,000 cash and 12 bottles of Dregs lotion for thinking up the best advertising slogan. "Just think, Aroma, a real radio broadcast from Centerburg. I'll have to see that." The day of the broadcast arrived, and Homer rode to Centerburg on his bicycle to watch. He was there early, and he got a good place right next to the man who worked the controls so he could see everything that happened. Mr. Dregs made a speech about the wonderful thing Mr. N.W. Blott had contributed to the future of American shaving with his winning slogan, quote, "The aftershave lotion with the distinctive, invigorating smell that keeps you on your toes." Then he gave N.W. the $2,000 and 12 bottles of lotion in a suitcase, just like the one Homer had at home. After N.W. made a short speech, the program was over. Just then, 4 men said, "Put 'em up." And then one of them said to N.W., "If you please," and grabbed the suitcase. So here's the announcers at the broadcast for the radio. And there's 4 men who said, "Put 'em up," with guns, and they have masks or scarves over their faces. And they're like, "Oh no!" So they give up the suitcase that looks just like Homer's, and grab the suitcase with all the money inside and the shaving lotion. All the money and lotion inside it. Everyone was surprised. Mr. Dregs was surprised. N.W. Blott was surprised. The announcer was surprised. The radio control man was surprised. And everybody was frightened, too. The robbers were gone before anybody knew what happened. They jumped into a car and were out of sight down Route 560A before the sheriff shouted, "Wait till I send out an alarm, men. Then we'll chase them. No radio robbers can do that in this town and get away again." The sheriff sent out an alarm to the state police, and then some of the men took their shotguns and went off down 56A in the sheriff's car. Homer waited around until the sheriff and the men came back, and the sheriff said, "They got clean away. There's not hide or hair of them the whole length of 56 or 56A. While they were eating dinner that evening, Homer told the family about what had happened in town. After helping with the dishes, he went up to his room, and after he had pulled Aroma up in the basket, he listened to the news report on the robbery on his new radio. "The police are baffled," the news commentator said. "Mr. N.W. Blott is offering half the prize money and 6 bottles of the lotion to anyone who helps him get his prize back." "Aroma, if we could just catch those robbers, we would have enough money to build lots of radios and even a television receiver," said Homer. He decided that he had better go to bed instead of trying to think of a way to catch robbers, because he was going to get up very early the next morning and go fishing. He woke up before it was light, slipped on his pants, and ate a bowl of cereal. Then he found his fishing pole, gave a low whistle for Aroma. The whistle wasn't necessary because Aroma was waiting in the basket. Homer put the basket on his bike, and they rode off down 56A. They turned into the woods where the bridge crossed the brook, and Homer parked the bike and started to walk along the brook with Aroma following right along. They fished all morning but didn't catch anything because the fish just weren't biting. They tried all of the best places in the brook, and when they were ready to go home, they decided to go straight through the woods instead of following the brook, because the woods path was much shorter. The path through the woods was an old wood road that was not used anymore. It had not been used for years, and almost everybody had forgotten that it was ever built. Before they had gone very far, Homer thought he heard voices. Then he smelled bacon cooking. He thought it was strange because nobody ever came up on this mountain to camp. So he decided to sneak up and investigate. Who do you think he's going to find? When Homer and Aroma looked around a large rock, they saw 4 men. "The robbers," whispered Homer. And indeed they were the robbers. There was the suitcase with the $2,000 and the 12 bottles of shaving lotion lying open on the ground. There's the robbers. Looks like they're trying to shave all around one mirror. The robbers had evidently just gotten up because they were cooking breakfast over an open fire and their faces were covered with soapy lather, for they were shaving. Homer was so interested in what the robbers were doing that he forgot to keep an eye on Aroma. The next thing he knew, Aroma had left the hiding place and was walking straight toward the suitcase. He climbed inside and curled up on the packages of money and went right to sleep. The robbers were busy shaving and having a difficult time of it too, because they had only one little mirror and they were all stooped over trying to look into it. So there they are shaving, and there's the suitcase before Aroma gets in it. "I can hardly wait to finish shaving and try some of that fragrant after-shaving lotion," said the first robber. Then the second robber, who had a cramp in his back from stooping over and from sleeping in the woods, straightened up and turned around. He noticed Aroma and said, "Look at that thing in our money." The other robbers turned around and looked surprised. "That, my dear friend, is not a thing. It is a mustelaine mammal, genus Mephitis, commonly known as a skunk," said the third robber, who had evidently gone to college and studied zoology. "Well, I don't care if it's a thing or a mammal or a skunk. He can't sleep on our money. I'll cook that mammal's goose." Then he picked up a big gun and pointed it at Aroma. "No." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," said the third robber with the college education. "It might attract the sheriff. And besides, it isn't the accepted thing to do to mustelaine mammals." So the robbers put a piece of bacon on the end of a stick and tried to coax Aroma out of the suitcase. But Aroma just sniffed at the bacon, yawned, and went back to sleep. Now the fourth robber picked up a rock and said, "This will scare it away." The rock went sailing through the air and landed with an alarming crash. It missed Aroma, but it broke a half-dozen bottles of Mr. Dregg's lotion. The air was filled with that distinctive, invigorating smell that keeps you on your toes. But mostly the air was filled with Aroma. Oh no. So the aftershave lotion and the skunk smell mixed together. Everybody ran because the smell was so strong it made you want to close your eyes. Homer waited by the old oak tree for Aroma to catch up, but not for Aroma to catch up all the way. They came to the bike and rode off at full speed, except to stop once to put Aroma and the basket on the rear mudguard. They made the trip home in record time. Put it on the back of the bike so it wouldn't blow in his face, I guess. Homer was very thoughtful while he did the odd jobs that afternoon. He thought he had better tell his mother what had happened up on the mountain. His father had gone into the city to buy some things that were needed around the place, and he would not be back until late that night. At dinner time, he was just about to tell her when she said, "I think I smell a skunk around here. I'll tell your father when he gets home. We will have to get rid of that animal right away because people will not want to spend the night at our tourist camp if we have that smell around." Then Homer decided not to say anything about it because he didn't want his father to get rid of Aroma, and because the robbers would no doubt get caught by the state police anyway. That evening, Homer was taking care of the gas station and helping his mother while his father was in the city. In between cooking hamburgers and putting gas in cars, he read the Radio Builders magazine and looked at the pictures in the mail order catalog. About 8 o'clock, 4 men got out of a car and said, "We would like to rent a tourist cabin for the night." Who do you think those 4 men are? Homer said, "All right, follow me," and he led the way to one of the largest cabins. "I think you will be comfortable here," he said, "and that will be $4 in advance, please." "Here's a $5 bill, Buddy. You can keep the change," said one of the men. "Thanks," said Homer as he stuffed the bill in his pocket and hurried out the door because there was a car outside honking for gas. He was just about to put the $5 bill in the cash register when he smelled that strange mixture, partly the distinctive invigorating smell that keeps you on your toes, and partly aroma. He sniffed the bill, and sure enough, that was what he had smelled. "The robbers! Those 4 men are the robbers," said Homer to himself. He decided that he had better call up the sheriff and tell him everything. He knew that the sheriff would be down at the barber shop in Centerburg playing checkers and talking politics with his friends, this being Saturday night. He waited until his mother was busy getting an extra blanket for someone because he did not think it was necessary to frighten her. Then he called the barber shop and asked to talk to the sheriff. "Hello," said Homer to the sheriff. "Those 4 robbers are spending the night out here at our tourist camp. Why don't you come out and arrest them?" "Well, I'll be switched," said the sheriff. "Have they got the money and the lotion with them?" "Yes, they brought it," said Homer. "Well, have they got their guns along too?" asked the sheriff. "I don't know, but if you hold the line a minute, I'll slip out and look," said Homer. He slipped out and peeped through the window of the robbers' cabin. They were getting undressed, and their guns were lying on the table and on the chairs and under the bed and on the dresser. There were lots of guns. Homer slipped back and told the sheriff. "They must have a dozen or 2. The sheriff said, "They have, huh? Well, I'll tell you, Sonny, I'm just about to get my hair cut. So you just sort of keep your eye on 'em, and I'll be out there in about an hour or so. That'll give them time to get to sleep. Then some of the boys and me can walk right in and snap the bracelets on 'em." "Okay. See you later, Sheriff," said Homer. Later, when his mother came in, Homer said, "Mother, I have some very important business. Do you think that you could take care of things for a while?" "Well, I think so, Homer," said his mother, "but don't stay away too long." Homer slipped up to a window in the robber's cabin and started keeping an eye on them. They were just getting into bed, and they were not in a very good humor because they had been arguing about how to divide the money and the 6 bottles of lotion that were left. So there's a picture of them in the bed, and there are guns under the bed, some shoes. And I think we're going to stop there for part 2.